The Project TT has been pretty solid lately, which is pretty cool considering how much has changed in the last couple months. We are still in the middle of tuning the big turbo kit we built for the car, and where we left off was at about 17 psi, which feels quite a bit faster than the stock KO4. After all, at a mere 15 psi on the new turbo, this car's pushing about 50% more air than the old turbo was at 20 psi. And we've still got quite a bit more room to go when it comes to the turbo itself. Plus, yet even more room to go after that once we build the engine. Right now, where we left off, we had just sent our most recent log over to the tuner for them to review. They're gonna see what they can change and double check if we're running into any hardware issues. If we are, they'll send us what we need to fix. And as far as what we're doing while we're waiting for the tuner to get back to us, I've got a pretty interesting idea on my mind. A pretty big change to consider, that is. A lot of the modifications we've done to this car lately have been for fun, to make it faster, look better, more aggressive, and whatnot. But recently, in regards to this car, I've had an entirely different school of thought on my mind: practicality. Currently, the only place to store pretty much anything is in the trunk, and obviously you can't exactly get to it while driving the car. And this was effectively the context that had been in the back of my mind for a while. How could we possibly add storage, improve practicality, and lose some weight in the process? And the answer to that? Well, it was staring me right in the face, of course. The rear seats. I mean, what do I even use these for? Come to think of it, I can't recall if I ever have. Furthermore, could you even fit anything useful in these seats? To me, these seats have always seemed fake, like a scale model of a seat. At least that's been my running theory. But I've always wondered, how much could you actually fit back here? So to fit back here, you'd need legs no thicker than 4 inches. Your femurs can't be longer than 13, and if the length of your torso and head is longer than 20 inches, well, good luck. I'm starting to think that these seats were really just designed for children, or more likely, so the car could be legally considered a 4-seater. I'm really not seeing a world where a normal-sized person could fit back here, but maybe my measurements are just wrong. Yep, just as I suspected, completely useless, at least to me. Even if the front seat was scooted all the way forward, my legs wouldn't fit back here. Plus, my head would still be sticking out the rear window. So, in other words, I'm not really seeing a use for these. In my mind, all they're really doing in my car is adding some additional weight. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to consider some alternatives. Deleting the rear seats on these cars is fairly common, actually. In fact, you can even buy a number of kits to do it. They range all the way from DIY options to some really expensive custom ones specific to the car. I was kind of on the fence though. It's not really a modification that I would consider a necessity. After all, these seats are functional and they fold down. In other words, I'd almost be going out of my way to make this change, but that doesn't mean it's not something I wouldn't want to do.
I was still on the fence. I was waiting for some sort of a sign, really any indication from the universe that I should get rid of these seats for good.
I mean, even if I just had a reason to pull the seats to begin with, it would make more sense. It's funny how whenever you're looking for something, you tend to find it. In my case, I found a reason to pull the rear seats, and it came in the form of a text from my tuner. The current limiting factor for the TT? Fuel. The car needs a better fuel pump and bigger injectors. And since the fuel pump is under the rear seats, they've got to come out. I had to wait a bit for the fueling mods, so I got to thinking.
And at this point, I only had one question on my mind. Once the pump was swapped and the seats were out, would I ever want to put them back in?
I mean, how much was I using them to begin with?
In the entire time I've owned the car, I think I've used them not at all.
So given I never used them, would I even miss them? Or is it one of those cases where you don't realize you missed something until it's gone? Either way, I had quite a bit of thinking to do, and after a couple weeks of contemplating, I made a decision. In this box is everything we'll need to delete the rear seats. The car's going to be more practical, way less, and might even look better. So in other words, I'm completely stoked. As far as deleting the rear seats, I was considering a couple options. On one end of the spectrum, there's some big name companies that make kits which are very expensive, and on the other hand, it's a complete DIY affair. However, I chose neither of those. It is important to me to support small business whenever I can, and this case is no exception. This kit comes to me all the way from Poland, and to my knowledge, one guy is running this whole operation. Made to order too, so you can pick the color. And styling-wise, it looks very similar to what you'd find in a Quattro Sport TT, a version of the car that never made it to the US. It replaces those seats with a shelf and a little support brace that goes on top, and when all said and done, I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic.
Given the time of day this package showed up, I was not going to be installing them right then. And in fact, we had something else we could do instead.
Just because the car needs more fuel before we can make more boost doesn't mean we're off the hook when it comes to uploading a new tune. In fact,
Motiza had sent us over another tune. Since we are physically limited on fuel, this will not be improving power. What it will be doing is affecting throttle response and making it a lot more zippy.
in other words, the whole goal of this tune is to make the car feel a lot more responsive. It should improve throttle response and help remove a bit of rev hang, so even though it's not going to make more power, the power should feel a lot better, which, holistically, is a lot more important. All I had to do was plug the car in, upload the new tune, and take it for a spin to see if we noticed any differences. And overall, I absolutely did. The throttle felt noticeably more direct, the rev hang was better, and overall the car felt absolutely great. So I started another log and did a bit of spirited driving. Most of this drive was low speeds testing throttle response, but just like normal, we had to do a third gear pull to redline. And so far, these have all went really well. This one, not as much. No brakes, no throttle, no steering, nothing. And we were still going 40 miles an hour.
Oh no.
So I did all I could think to do. Use the handbrake to pull over to the side of the road.
Oh boy. Oh, we got nothing. That's good. Oh no.
I looked over at the log to see if there were any clues, but I figured it might be better just to check the engine itself. Thankfully, it was nothing major at all. All that really happened was we made so much boost that our charge pipe popped off of the turbo. So the fix should be as simple as just putting it back on and tightening it. Turns out we have two hardware limitations. I think we should swap the silicone piece of that charge pipe to one that fits a little bit better, but I don't have those parts or those tools here. So the pressing issue is limping the car home. It's looking like we just blew off the charge pipe and the car shut itself down to protect itself, which is good. It seems to be holding just fine and the car is driving absolutely no differently. So we should be good to get it back. Realistically though, what I need to do is park the car and order a replacement for that hose. Currently we have a step down reducer in there and that makes it kind of weak for high boost. We haven't ran into an issue with that yet, but it seems like we're starting to. To be honest, I'm glad we found another issue. That's kind of the whole point of doing these logs and testing this kit. Unless we break something, we're not going to find the weakest link and be able to improve it. The only issue is this is going to have to wait for when we do the fuel pump. Gotta love slow shipping. But in the meantime, we can get back to those rear seats.
And I don't really have plans to sell this OEM interior. In my opinion, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
I can't imagine an OEM interior will be easy to find in 10 years, so it makes sense to keep it. As far as removing it though, it is shockingly simple. To start, the bottom is only held in with two clips, one on each side. And to remove it, all you have to do is pull up and then slide the whole seat forward. And that was when I was introduced to a very nasty surprise. Apparently, these seats have never been removed, so underneath is absolutely disgusting. I've definitely got to do something about that. About 5 minutes into vacuuming, I started to realize that this carpet was almost unsalvageable. There was so much hair and grime matted into it that I really didn't know how I was going to clean it. At least not without a carpet cleaner. But the saving grace is that this carpet is only here because of the rear seats. It's not a part of the kit we're installing, so we can actually just pull the seats now and not waste time cleaning something that won't even be here. And the seats are actually quite easy to remove. Each seat has 2 standard bolts and 2 Torx bolts. And the easiest place to start is with the standard ones. The Torx bolts in the rear don't have to come out all the way. If you undo them a couple turns, you can slide the whole seat back and up and out. But getting to them is a lot harder than the standard bolts. I figured the easiest way to reach them would be by removing this rear cover. And I'm glad I did, because back here was filthy too. Might as well go the extra mile and clean everything while we're doing this. Here are the Torx bolts that I was talking about, and the only real issue with removing them is there's just not a lot of clearance. They are a big Torx bolt, and the only way I could get it to work was with a wrench holding the bit. The socket just wouldn't fit back there. But once all 4 are out, the seat can slide back, followed by up, and then it's free. While I'm not fully deep cleaning this car right now, I figured it was also a good idea to remove the spare and the toolkit to clean under there as well. That way we know for a fact everything is at least moderately clean and free of debris. With that, however, we can move on to actually installing the new parts rather than pulling the old stuff off. And I think it's going to look really good. This piece is a tolerance fit. The two little divots hook onto brace points in the car, and other than that, it really just sits there. And since it's not holding a person, that's actually totally fine. It's also made of wood, if you're curious, so if we ever did need to refinish it years in the future, totally easy to do. And the install in its entirety is really just setting the piece in place. It's built with enough care that it really just fits, which is cool because sadly it's not too common anymore. I set the spare cover back in the car to get a loose idea of what it was going to look like, and as soon as I did that, I realized that the whole thing was going to have to come back out so that I could install the net. The net is totally optional, but I do think it looks best with it. I reattached the spare cover and then I turned my sights over to the reinforcement bar. First things first, I removed the old pieces that the seats latched onto. The reinforcement bar bolts here. While the reinforcement bar looks like one piece, it's actually 5, and each one serves a specific function. The end caps bolt directly to each side of the car, but the pipe is cut with the exact length so that the only way it will fit here is if it is in both end caps. It can't be longer, and if it was any shorter, it couldn't hold itself up. So the only way for the pipe to actually get into place is by redesigning the end caps themselves. They are a multi-piece design. The part that bolts to the car and the sheath that goes around the connecting pipe are different, and the pipe is cut precisely so that it forms a tolerance fit with both of the pieces bolted to the car. And then the little sheath piece goes around both the part bolted to the car and the pipe, keeping it in place. And this is a really cool design in my opinion. After a test fit, I was ready to remove it all once again and go back from the beginning, tightening it down this time. I also ended up removing the spare cover again to tighten the net a little bit more, but overall I think it was worth doing. And I figured since I vacuumed the rear so intensively, I might as well give the front the same detailing treatment. One of these days I should do a real detailing episode on all of my cars. Especially with winter, I think they could all really use it. This project really does never end though. Since the rear of the car now has an improved look, I wonder if we should also consider improving the seats. After all, they've got tears and they really could be a lot cooler. I'll sit on that one for a bit. I've been wanting to delete these seats for a while now, and now that I have, I can't believe I didn't do it sooner. The seat delete looks absolutely stunning. cool thing about this is not only does it look better, but it's actually practical. I can fit more in the car and access it easier.
And I did this rear seat delete more so for the practicality boost of having more space than the actual weight reduction, but it does actually weigh a little bit less.
For reference, everything in the seat delete kit weighs 30 pounds total, pretty much 30 pounds exactly. So long as the OEM seats weigh more, the car is technically faster, or at least I'm telling myself that. It's probably not going to be too much of a difference. The heaviest part of the OEM seats is the seat backs, and there's 2 of them, each of which weighing 17 pounds. The bench itself is pretty light at 7 pounds. I'm also just going to assume 1 pound for all the hardware and the additional buckles, which brings it to about 42 pounds. So in other words, we've saved about 12 pounds. Not a huge difference, but it's not heavier, which is awesome considering it's a boost in looks and practicality. In other words, an absolute win. Overall, I am glad I bought this kit, and it's always nice to support a small business. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. That's the best way you can help support me and my content. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.